Hey everybody, today in Inside Craft Show, we're getting graphic with cinemagraphs, loopy video, Fruit Loops. Yeah, so basically we're gonna jump in. It's gonna cut to the video. So you're seeing this video, we are currently shooting something. So we prepped this ahead of time to bring it to you guys. So today is about cinemagraphs and how they can make you make more money. Easy, quick tips in generating more income for your clients on B-roll or planning them out before you jump in on them. It's just a cool, easy way to make some extra cash by upselling. And upselling is a classic sales term, but it does help and it's fun. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, one of the things is with cinemagraphs, there's simple and complex versions of it. Some of these are GH5, some of these are red. We mix the footage together. It doesn't really matter. The point of it is the process in which you can approach a cinemagraph. So if we're looking at a simple cinemagraph, and that is one to say that is going to play very simply, what I do typically, in this case, there's a graphic on it. Let me shut that off real quick. There's a graphic here, I'll shut that off. So then we'll just play back the cinemagraph and you can see it's just a ride. So I made sure to frame it up correctly, get a good exposure. This was just shot with a standard profile because these were quick turnarounds. They were a bonus for our client. So here's that first one. You can see it's just people bouncing up and then whoopee, they fall back down and then it loops according to the process. Now, a couple of things are going to be very important for cinemagraphs. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have the loop feature, which you can see. Get big, mouse. Oh, it doesn't do it. There it goes. Anyway, you can see the loop feature right here. If you don't have the loop feature in it, if you go down to this plus sign right here, hit the button editor, and you can actually add the loop button in here. I've already got it in there, so it doesn't matter, but you can click to add it, and it'll actually just drop it into this bracket. So you can add that in along with frame guides or whatever else you might need. The loop button is really important to this process. So this particular cinemagraph, right? So we'll throw a little graphic up. I believe it's this one. Yeah. I cut the brand out just for personal reasons. But so the brand goes up and does that. I wouldn't have had the graphic do it that way, but that's what the client wanted. So the truth of this is what you have to evaluate is how you get it to loop. So when it hits the web and it plays that loop, you want a seamless loop. So what we found is if we zoom in here on the timeline, you look down here, we have a cross dissolve. If I turn this cross dissolve off, you're gonna see the clouds. Watch the clouds jump cut in the background. And boop, you see that little shift? So by putting that dissolve in, let's play it again, you can actually hide the clouds moving and you barely see them. They actually shift backwards. They look like they're moving, so it's a little trick. But you also don't wanna you wanna end on an empty frame that's a perfect loopable frame. I have the clip here that we're using for the cinemagraph, which is just one time of this ride coming up into the frame. And then I have it cross dissolving into that same frame again. And that's the real trickery here is we're cross dissolving on the simple ones. You're gonna cross dissolve to the same frame again. So then I have that cross dissolve. Well, if I were exporting this, I would actually set my out point here and pay attention to this. It's something I've been noticing that annoys me about Premiere. It kicks the out point one frame over. And I typically don't want it one frame over. I want it on the exact frame I want, so I have to go back in and move it over. So now we have our out point. So if we play it back with looping on, which is here, right? So we suddenly play it back. We have a flawless, perfect sort of cinemagraph. And you can see it just going to loop over and over again without a problem. You don't even notice the cloud shifts. It's a very simple one, very cool way. So what it is you're looking for entry and exit points in the frame. This is a great example of that. You have a ride that comes into the frame and it just loops. This is great for Instagram, for Facebook, for websites, whatever it is. It's a great bonus feature you can throw to your clients. I planned this cinemagraph. So this is an example of planning a cinemagraph. In fact, I can show you one more simple cinemagraph I did not plan out. So this is me looking through the footage, wanting to upsell to my client what a cinemagraph might look like. This is a bonus piece, right? This is just a piece of B-roll that happened and it worked so well, I wanted to make it a cinemagraph. So pardon the blurring of the label. It's there again for brand protection. So we're protecting the brand in this particular element. It doesn't really take away from the shot. The blur is literally only on the bottle itself, on the label itself, right? So here's this cinemagraph, another simple one. You can see he crosses through the frame, he exits the frame, but we did have that light gimmick. So how do I fix that light gimmick? So if you notice, I just did a cross dissolve. Well, what did that do for the cross dissolve? Did I relight it? Did I retime it? No. All we simply did was go through and put a layer on top. So let's dig in. This, by the way, is a red shot. You can see it down here. It is red. So digging in on it, and so the camera doesn't matter, by the way. It just so happens we were on a red shoot. The client paid for a red camera. So if we look down here, all I've done is bring the exact same shot up above this one. So here's the base plate version. If we turn it off, you can see what happens. It just holds. It's just holding there as he's walking out of frame. But in order to make the loop, the simple loop is I know that he crosses from right to left. The light changes, so I need to reset the light. So by cross dissolving back to the initial frame, it works, right? So if we were looping, you would see that. So all I did was make sure the camera did not move, it's a static frame, and I cross dissolved it, and I found that one, right? I found the cinemagraph as a markup point to the client. So it's a very simple way. Let's watch it one more time. As you can see, very simple, great for a website or Instagram, just a bartender walking by in the background. You can see the taps, there's pretty bokeh, there's all kinds of things happening, and then it just loops, the light comes off the bottle. Again, not super planned, this was just a product shot, but it works as a great cinemagraph. Okay, so one of the things we want to talk about as well is the more complex cinemagraphs, and these are ones that require a little more clever editing, nuances, and so forth. So these again are with that product bottle, so it's been blurred out just because for their brand, and these are not the final delivery of the products. These are just some cinemagraphs I put together to show you guys complexity of this. The original or the final of this version is absolutely gorgeous. Jeff did a absolutely amazing color treatment on it. But let's check out this cinemagraph. Let me set my out point. Again, making sure I have looping on, and as I said, the stupid frame thing doesn't work. If you don't make sure that's set, it'll screw you up. So here is the cinemagraph. Here's a complex one. As you can see, he's just stirring and stirring and stirring. So it's just a nice, clean, simple loop. You can see a little bit of a pop in his shoulder when I'm cutting between them, but it doesn't look unnatural. It looks kind of like he's leaning forward, but it's a little trick in that space. But let's look at the timeline. So as we zoom in on the timeline, what we have here is the same shot. Yet again, here's that same shot looping over and over again, but you notice there's a little bitty pigtail on the bottom, and this is where it gets very technical and very tricky. In order to pull this shot off, what we have is we have the looping element of the shot. This is the stir that I wanted to get, and to make sure I lined them up, I just double checked on the spinning part where I could, in terms of timing, make sure that the stick looked naturally where it was going to go. So if you watch, it's moving up and down, but in reality, it just looks like he's stirring forever. So what you want to do is look for the in point and the out point, and it does take some fine tuning to get it to that spot, and that's what we did here. So I looped it 3 times. So that means I looped this stir 3 times. I do have a cross dissolve between them. I looped the stir 3 times in order to get the timing where I wanted it and to make the shot last upwards of 7 seconds. I didn't want just a single loop. I wanted to be a little more mesmerizing and hopefully get you to look at the shot. Again, Jeff's color treatment, this is not the final pass, totally blows it out of the water, and it's amazing. But the important part on this is I couldn't just keep looping through, because what would happen is if I turn off, for example, this element, and we loop, it does not give us a clean break. So let me make sure we're lined up, because we have that. So now here's the non-clean break version, and you can see there's going to be a jump cut at the base of this. So we loop once, we are into the 3rd loop now, and watch the cut. See that little jump? That's because it's mid-stir. So how do we fix that jump? Is we go in and we add a pigtail. And this little pigtail right here is actually the same frame yet again, but what I do is I trim it. So this comes from the front. So I basically, the shot on the front of the clip matches into the perfect in frame. So the start frame is the very next frame after the very last frame. Does that make sense? That's the tricky part. So the start frame in the cinemagraph, this frame right here, is a continuation, exactly 1 frame continuation of our last frame, which is here. So that when they cut together, it's a seamless blend as they jump through it. So that's one of the more complex ways of looking at it, is you have to look at the start and stop frames in order to accomplish what you're after. So that's one. That's just making a looping video. In that case, you've got to think about your start frame and your end frame, and you find that midpoint. And again, the pigtail is what I use in order to hide the edit so that it seamlessly goes through. So then we're going to go into another one. Now this one's even more tricky. This is where we use whole lots of trickery in order to pull it off. And this one works off of the idea of a very planned shot. So what we wanted to do here is have someone drinking a cocktail, and then they set down the cocktail, pick up a deck of cards, and then drink the cocktail, and that's our loop. So it goes continuously. As you can see, he sets down the drink. That's the first part of the shot. And he sets down the drink. Again, that's blurred up at the top. That's just to blur the brand out. And then he lifts up the drink, and it blends in and you can't see the difference, but on the loop, it is a perfect loop. So we have hidden the edit inside of that because you can't get those rocks perfect, but you'll never notice the difference. So let's analyze how we went about doing that. Again, this first shot here is kind of continuous. I did take a jump cut. You can watch the ice. So if you pay attention to the ice, right up in here, you'll see the ice move. Boop. You see that little, it's turning and it moved. That's just for timing reasons. I wanted to get it a little bit faster, but this is all the same shot. So what we have is we start at this exact frame, which will also correspond with this exact frame. So, oh, sorry, one more. This frame is the last frame in the cinemagraph, and this first frame is the frame after the last frame in the cinemagraph, so that they tie up completely and you get a perfect seamless loop. So it takes a little practice and a little bit of knowledge to put it together, but that's how we did it. So the loop comes down, we see it drop, he reaches for the cards, which that was me, by the way. I don't think I could ever do this again. I am not this cool with cards to do that perfect fan. That's pretty craziness. And I set them down, I pick up the drink again, and I go towards the lens, and we let it go out of focus simply because that would be a great focal point. If we pulled the focus, we would never be able to match it. So you had to think about that in post. But if we look down on the timeline, it's the same thing as we've done before. If I turn off this top layer and we loop it, it's not bad. It still plays. It's just I can see a little pop, and that's me being super, super nitpicky. So this is without the top layer. You see the little jump there? That's what we're trying to patch. We're patching that little jump because I could not bring the glass to the perfect spot both times. So by turning on this top layer, we watch it again, watch the blend. You don't even notice the fact that it blended. So it blends into that first shot. Again, the last frame on the cinemagraph is wait, this is where it gets confusing. The frame after the last frame in the cinemagraph is the first frame of the cinemagraph, which is some meta thinking that gets all a little bit crazy. But then again, if we look at this top layer, we have this cross dissolve that blends them together so that we get this seamless sort of flow that you can't see in reality. This is one of my favorites. It was very tricky to figure out how to get this to time out. It's a short, quick one. It's a fun one. It's a great brand piece, and you can kind of see, an easy way of doing cinemagraphs. Jeff is floating around somewhere. Oh, he's back behind me. We don't want to show him because he's got a different shirt on. Just show your hand, Jeff. There it is. Yeah, you would understand. It's the follies of production. Anyway, Jeff's back there working. And, we're in the process of shooting something right now. Hopefully we have CRFTSHO Live tomorrow. We don't know. It'll be from our cell phones if we do, and it'll be kind of secretive because we'll be on location and we'll try and do the best we can. But that's what's going on. So thanks again for watching. Like, subscribe, share, hang out with us. Post in the comments what you want to see. This was Cinemagraphs. It was actually a conversation we had with one of our community members. We were engaging in convos about marking up, being able to add more value to your clients, and this is one of the ideas we have. So I hope you enjoyed it. We're out.